Hello and welcome back to the Breadcrumbs Project, where I am suffering um, apoplectic shock watching this presentation by Dr. John Coleman. And the information that he brings forth was so important to our country back in the 80s and 90s, and those that had and have a chokehold over our country and the West really did a number on us. It really did a number on us because we're about to go into something that was near and dear to my heart that I thought I was right on, and that's free trade. And I never understood really what it meant because it was never explained or talked about. Both sides of the aisle, both sides of the coin, everything that I was getting the information from was letting me know that NAFTA and free trade agreements were great for our country, good for prosperity, get our economies in high gear. Everybody was talking like that, except for one guy, and he ended up being right. And that's Dr. John Coleman. I'm so sorry. I got to know this guy late in life. Thank you, Anon55, for reposting this very important video that helps to make sense of what's happening right now in the world and in our country, with Trump renegotiating a bunch of trade agreements and doing away with the City of London, and hopefully we understand. Oops, hang on. My microphone's not working right now, so let me get Dr. Coleman going, and I'll fix this.
What is the political future of the United States? I told you that we have been forced into a one-world government, new world order by the use of the word democracy and by the use of the word global trade and free trade. There is no such thing as free trade. The United States made itself great by its own manufacturing abilities. We had our people fully employed. We had our people who could buy all the products that we made. We did not need global trade. If people wanted the privilege of selling on our markets, they had to pay customs tariffs. And did you know that up to 1913, all the money that it took to run the United States came from customs tariffs? We had no income tax. And in 1913, we had a surplus of $5 billion after all our bills were paid. Now comes socialist Wilson, and the first thing he does, he calls for a joint session of Congress. And he said, we've got to stop this isolationist. Ladies and gentlemen, this word isolation is a smear word. It's intended to deceive you. We do not need global trade. We need full employment. We need our people back in full-paying jobs. We need our industries revitalized.
This man couldn't be more right. All right, my microphone's working. We didn't understand. I mean, we were fed a lie by every TV news commentator, every economist, everybody in the world fed us a lie that free trade was going to make America just what he's saying. Put our factories back to work and get America on the road. And every day they were doing more free trade, we were losing more factories, more jobs. And the days that he was talking about back then, when we had a $5 billion surplus in the Treasury, and we had our companies manufacturing, our quality was the best in the world. We were exporters. we were exporters, and our goods and our products were deeply desired around the world. I can tell you that from personal experience. I'm 60 years old, and I remember the 1970s, 1980s, everybody wanted our products. And then became the created decline, which just absolutely was terrible. So I wish I'd known you sooner, Dr. Coleman. I wish I would have known about you sooner and would have known you.
We have today 40 million unemployed Americans, and Alexander King has stated the policy of the Club of Rome, followed slavishly by William Jefferson Clinton. Americans can forget about full employment in the future forever. 40 million, those are the real figures. We have 25 million people underemployed. People with great skills who are acting as doormen in hotels, flipping hamburgers, for God's sake. These people, and they talk, Mr. whatever his name is, Reich or whatever it is, he says, oh, the Clinton administration has created 2 million new jobs. Well, I don't like to pick on his size, but I think it's gone to his head, if you get the drift of my meaning. There's no 2 million jobs of any magnitude being created. He's talking about makeshift jobs. We have the biggest underpaid, underemployment class in the world today, and we have the middle class totally destroyed by the socialist administration. And Clinton is hand in glove with him and going along with him as fast as he can go. We have become the dumping ground for the world's products, and that has put our people out of jobs, reduced our standard of living, the object of the exercise being that one day we shall be no better than a third world country as far as our standard of living. Take the shoe industry. In 1950, only 4% of shoes sold in America were imported shoes. Every president that came along knocked down the tariffs against shoes, imported shoes. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you a message of hope, not fear. An exercise of arbitrary power. If we had any men of guts in the Senate, so-called conservatives, they would walk out en masse and say, we are not taking part in this effort to denigrate and destroy the Constitution of the United States of America. And you can imagine what an effect that would have. GATT will be allowed to be debated for 2 days. 26,000 pages, and some of the most insidious things that you've ever seen are in this document, and they all, every one of them, say GATT shall override all the laws of the United States. The President and our senators and our House members are supposed to uphold the law of the United States. If they sign GATT, they're guilty of sedition and treason. Period. That's it. This came as a natural outflow of the United Nations Treaty. I found there that 5 senators, listen to this for a disgrace, ladies and gentlemen, 5 senators actually read this United Nations document. Again, it was 53,000 pages long. 5 senators, and they had 3 days to read this document, and it was then rammed down the people of the United States. I want to tell you that we do not belong to the United Nations. One of the greatest constitutional scholars it was ever my great pleasure to speak with was the late Senator Sam Ervin, who told me there's no way under the noonday sun that we could ever have joined in the United Nations. We did not join the United Nations, and we do not belong to it now. I've written a little work called Is the United States a Member of the United Nations? And you'll find in there I give you chapter and verse constitutionally why we cannot be. 1965, we had another national calamity without a national debate. The Democrats reformed immigration. Now notice, every time some far-reaching thing happens, then the socialists come along with the reform. It's to reform health, which, by the way, Lenin said a national health plan is the arch of socialism. So now you know where Clinton got his national health program from. He took it straight out of the Communist Manifesto of 1848. They were not satisfied with immigration.
Off. Sorry, microphone was off. I need a producer. A lot of my friends get excited about talking about national health care and free health care. And I've got to tell you, I live here in Spain right now, and they do have free health care. But you do have to pay for it to participate. So for every year, you have to pay monthly. It's like Social Security. Like it's like what we pay in the United States for Social Security. You pay monthly for Social Security, which includes access to hospitals and doctors and to make appointments. But it's absolutely crap. It's the worst health care in the world. They are, to get a doctor's appointment, you have to wait 2 or 3 months. And they don't even touch you. They just look at you and then do work on the computer and then and God knows what. It is just absolutely medieval, the healthcare here in Spain for the free stuff. Now the pay for stuff is excellent. If you have insurance and you have money and you go to some of the finest hospitals in Europe here, if you have insurance. So again, spot on. The free health care, the government doling out health care is just a mistake. And so they couldn't get us to do the free health care. So it became insurance, health care maintenance organizations, and just thrusting medicine on us. I remember when I was a kid, the doctor would tell us, look, do exercise, lose weight, maintain your weight, and you'll pretty much be okay. And if we had to get medicine, we'd go to a pharmacist who would either have to craft it himself, depending on our age and our body weight, or he'd have something that was generally available for adults on the shelf, depending on what it was. But your medicine was given to you by a pharmacist. Now the pharmacist is out of the picture. They're just pill counters. So all of this modern health care, boy. And one more thing that I have to share before I get back to Dr. John. So my family is famous for having bad hips, the men in the family, my dad's side. And I'm turning 60 years old. Sure enough, I'm having hip issues. And I've gone to YouTube, of all places, to do my research on bad hips and what to do if you do have hip pain and knee pain. I don't have the knee pain yet, but I do have hip pain and butt clenches and squats. Thank God I've already been doing the squats for a long time. I saw a need for that a long time ago. So for the last let's say the last 10 years, I've been making sure to start doing squats, to do squats better, and I'm pretty darn good about it. And now I got to do deeper squats because of my hips. And what's happened is my hip pain has started to diminish, and greatly. And as long as I am doing these efforts, then yeah, I'm doing much better. So the body is designed to heal itself. And it's not designed to sit in a chair or stand up for a long time like I do. You're designed to be outside and working the fields and moving your body, and that took care of itself. So, yeah, a lot of stuff's been done to us. All right, back to good Dr. John.
As it was, the bulk of the people came from those who were related to the Jeffersons, the George Washingtons, the Davy Crockett's. They were not satisfied with that. Without a national debate, without asking the people of this country by your leave, the Democrats in 1965 forced through an Immigration Reform Act that totally changed the face of the United States and will totally change us And one of the architects of that was the same Dean Rusk, the swine who stopped MacArthur from bombing the Chinese back to the Stone Age, and, of course, Nicholas Katzenbach. I wanted to give you some statistics. Now, people have accused me, they said, you are a racist. First of all, the word racist is a very modern smear word. If you look in the dictionaries in 1919 onwards, it did not exist. What they really mean to say is you are a racialist, i.e. a person who's proud of your race. I'm not saying this against any group, any nationality. I want to show you how the socialists, without our permission, without a national agenda, without a national debate, will change the face of the United States. In 1984, the people from traditional immigration stock made up 74% of the total population. By the year 2080, less than 100 years from now, we will make up 39.5% of the population. And it goes on. The Hispanics were 9.4 in 1980, they'll be 15.4. The Asians, 2.4, will be 13.3 of the population. In other words, the traditional Americans of the Davy Crockett, George Washington, the people Monroe said would make a real contribution to America, will be in the distinct minority. And this is thanks to the Democrat Party, who in 1965, without by your leave of the people, changed the rules. And now they've got us blindsided by concentrating on illegal immigration. Illegal immigration is nothing. That's a small problem. The legal immigration that was authorized in 1965 without your permission, that's where the big problem lies. These statistics were provided to me by a man called Lee Bouvier, who was one of the leading advisors to the former INS official. And of course we know that abortion is another way in which the population is being diminished. I have challenged judges all across the country to show me in the United States Constitution, where is there provision for abortion? And I've yet to see. Oh, they say in the Fourth Amendment. Don't you believe it? The Fourth Amendment has nothing to do. It doesn't mention the word abortion. And where a word is not mentioned in the Constitution, it is a prohibition of that word. There's no such thing as free choice. This is a communist doctrine brought to this country by a woman called Madame Calonte. Madame Calonte you've probably never heard of, but she is the inventor, the author and the finisher of NOW and NARL and abortion. It's all in my book, Socialism, The Road to Slavery. Where do we stand now? I told you that we're in danger because the separation of powers mandated by the Constitution are being broken up every day. You now have the idiocy of Clinton having line item veto. That means if he doesn't like something, he can go and veto just that line that he doesn't like. That is breaking down the separation of powers forbidden by the Constitution. Also meddling in trade. The President has no right to be meddling in any treaty whatsoever. That is strictly for the House according to the Constitution of the United States. And I dealt with the Commander-in-Chief situation already. We need to understand the seriousness of the Commander-in-Chief. Lincoln said that if we allow this title, he said, we are then putting presidents where kings stood. And he said one of the most hated powers of kings was their ability to make war at any whim that came to their mind. And if we do not stop this Commander-in-Chief nonsense with Clinton, that's where we're going to find ourselves. We are already there with 80, and we are already there with our troops being sent to Kuwait. I want to tell you that the cost of the Middle East peace so far, to you, the American taxpayers, is $38 billion, and the clock is still running. Jordan was given $4 billion to sign this treaty.
Man, 38 billion back then? We're in the trillions now, man. We are in the trillions. This guy, John Coleman, was spot on. The problem is, and I don't think Mr. Coleman had the concept, but our Congress is completely powerless, defanged, dysfunctional, and not fit for the offices that they should be. The congressmen should have bigger and better staff. The process of electing a congressman should not be by he who has the most money, by a long shot. There should be no parties. Individuals who want to serve in this capacity should debate openly and freely and many times in front of the people with real debates, not these things that they do on CNN. I know, I'm living in a wishful world, and we've seen with Trump what these guys have built. These guys, through all this corruption and all of this corrupt activity. I mean, it was all by design, and it is all by design. Well, they created Trump, or they allowed Trump to exist. And Trump is doing treaties, Trump is doing trade, Trump is doing commander-in-chief, Trump is doing war stuff. But they set the stage for it. They set the stage for it. Yeah, I worked in Washington as a staffer. And it's a bunch of young folks that can be easily manipulated in the cocktail party set lifestyle of Washington, D.C. Congressmen and senators should not be in Washington. They should be in their state researching and being accountable to their people, and then going to Washington for votes. Rarely and cheaply.
The other nations have been guaranteed credits and all sorts of things that will bring up the total to $38 billion for this so-called peace accord in the Middle East to come about. Of course, it's doomed to failure, but that doesn't matter. In the meantime, it makes the President of the United States look good. We need to understand something. I told you today there's anarchy and chaos in Washington. That is because the United States government is a government of strictly limited empowerment. It cannot just willy-nilly go making bills. For a measure to be introduced into the House, it has to be in consonance with or in pursuance of something already in the Constitution. If it is not, it is unconstitutional. And I've looked at 3,000 bills passed in recent years, and every one of them are unconstitutional because they were new things that some lighter-than-incendiary fairy-head liberal said, well, I'm going to introduce this into the Congress. I'm going to have this law passed, like Dinah Swinstein's 19 assault rifles ban. There's nothing in the Constitution that would allow her to do that. Specifically, the 10th Amendment is very, very precise, and I can quote you 54 instances where this is mentioned in the Annals of Congress, the Congressional Records and Globes. The 10th Amendment is a restriction on the federal government. Our founding fathers were very frightened to give unlimited powers to the federal government. Daniel Webster said we must cage them like a lion. We must not give them unlimited powers. It is a government of limited powers, but particularly the 18 Amendments. And just to make sure that the federal government would understand this, in the 18th Amendment, there's a little title that's very important. It says they can only do things that are necessary and proper. And I want to ask you, is rushing our troops off to Kuwait to protect the income of the decadent Al-Sabah family, whose money goes to the Royal Institute of International Affairs banks in London, is that necessary and proper for the United States to be doing? We don't get any benefit out of that. No. The 18th Amendment, necessary and proper. The 10th Amendment, the police powers of health, education, and police protection are entirely reserved for the states. And I can quote you 48 court cases from the annals of Congress, from the statements made by the Founding Fathers. Those powers were never surrendered to the federal government. Therefore, the federal government has no business interfering in health matters, national health plan, no business interfering in crime bills, that's a matter for the states, and no business interfering particularly with the Second Amendment. I was in New York the other day on a radio program, and a very irritated, angry lady said she was a professor of law from Columbia. She came in on the program and she said, "You don't know what you're talking about." She said, it's not a right to bear arms. I told her exactly what it was. And she said, well, if that's true, then voting is a right. I said, no, voting has never been a right. The only rights and the only civil rights we got are found in the Fifth Amendment. And that's all. Forget the 1868 Act. That was done when the United States, the southern states, were under occupation. They were occupied countries. Forget Nicholas Katzenbach's 1964 Civil Rights Act. The only civil rights we've got are those contained in the Fifth Amendment. And health, education, and police powers belong to the states. Mr. Schweinstein has no right passing a bill classifying 19 types of assault weapons. What is an assault weapon anyway? Any gun is an assault weapon. That's what you use guns for. You use it to shoot people. Or animals, or protect yourself. Any gun is an assault weapon. A knife is an assault weapon. You know, now they have this poor, almost idiot Bray running around the country. They're using him shamefully to push for gun control. This man doesn't know whether he's Arthur or Martha at the moment. This is not an issue of gun control. This is an assault on the Constitution of the United States of America in total. You cannot take one part of the Constitution and attack it and exclude the others. And this is what it is. It is an attack upon the Constitution of the United States of America. We need to understand about GATT. I'd like to go back to that a little bit. Michael Carpenter, the Attorney General of Maine, and 46 other Attorney Generals of the states wrote a letter to Clinton last July, and they asked him, please, Mr. President, let us have a national conference of all Attorneys General of the states on this matter. Clinton refused to answer him. Instead, he got his Hollywood lawyer pal, Mickey Cantor, whose only expertise...
I remember this. Oh man, I remember this. We were done over and so bad for so many decades.
In the world is running around with a Hollywood crowd. He's a Hollywood lawyer. And suddenly Clinton puts him in charge of trade. Trade wars, GATT, is piracy. It will destroy the livelihood of the people of this nation. What is the situation facing us right now? There's an attack on the dollar. The gnomes of the bond market are fleeing. I've written a work called The Economic Implosion, Year of Crisis, 1995, in which I predict the collapse of our economic system as we know it today in pursuance of the GATT Treaty. One of the things I know for a fact that this will be an implosion, i.e. our system will collapse on the ground at which it now stands. It's not going to be an explosion that will scatter everything. And we know that GATT will come in and say how much you can get for your interest. They will also put the International Monetary Fund in charge of our finances, and banking in this country will be in the control of 5 major banks. That will help to control the situation and further destabilize.
Thankfully, that did not happen. And GAP was not passed. So good news there. Yeah, folks, it's been a wild ride. So We'll pick up a different part of the storm tomorrow. There's a lot going on with the war with Iran, where if you have a Q perspective, you might be seeing something a little bit different. And thank you, Dr. John Coleman. If you want to see the whole entire video, go to Anon 55. Go to his excellent YouTube channel. A lot of stuff there that we need to know about, and stay up with all that's happening. All right, I don't want to go over 30 minutes on these programs, so I'll see you tomorrow, 11 o'clock Eastern.